When your children don't respect you, do this instead. 6. Powerful ways to regain respect. Senior. There inevitably comes a poignant juncture in the intricate tapestry of life where the deeply ingrained roles between parents and children undergo a profound and often bewildering metamorphosis. For decades, you, as a parent, poured your very essence into nurturing them, painstakingly guiding them through life's labyrinthine paths and making countless, often unnoticed sacrifices that shaped their formative years, yet then, almost imperceptibly, a realization dawns. Something fundamental has irrevocably shifted in the dynamic, manifesting in ways that can cut deep. Perhaps they now nonchalantly disregard your hard-earned counsel. Perhaps they casually dismiss your opinions as if they hold no weight. Or perhaps with a sting that resonates, they speak down to you, employing a tone that strips away your authority and wisdom. Or, in the cruelest twist of all, they inadvertently or deliberately make you feel like an unwelcome burden, an inconvenient presence. And the ache of this revelation is sharp and undeniable. If your beloved children, whom you raised with such devotion, have indeed begun to treat you with less than the respect you profoundly deserve, a cascade of emotions might engulf you, from gnawing frustration to a searing anger that threatens to consume your peace. The natural, almost primal urge might be to emphatically remind them of the monumental debt of everything you have selflessly poured into their existence, of the countless years you unreservedly placed their needs and desires above your own. But here one must confront a harsh and unvarnished truth. Succumbing to anger, allowing it to dictate your reactions, will not, under any circumstances, rectify the situation. In fact, experience unequivocally demonstrates that an angry retort, a frustrated outburst more often than not, exacerbates the rift, driving a deeper wedge between you and your children, hardening their stance and deepening their perceived grievances, if any. Instead, there exists a far more nuanced, incredibly potent, and ultimately more effective pathway to subtly yet profoundly reclaim their respect. A path that requires neither the wearisome battles of verbal confrontation, nor the draining exhaustion of endless arguments, nor the corrosive bitterness of lingering resentment. Today, we delve into 6 profoundly impactful, yet deceptively simple actions you can deliberately undertake when you find yourself navigating the painful landscape of children who seemingly no longer extend the respect you are due. These are not grand gestures, but rather subtle yet powerful shifts in your inherent responses, fundamental recalibrations in the way you interact and present yourself, changes so potent that they possess the astonishing capacity to utterly transform the very lens through which your children perceive you. While some of these insights might initially catch you off guard, perhaps even challenging long-held beliefs, I implore you to engage with them fully. For if you absorb these principles and commit to their application, you will unlock the secret to not merely regaining, but powerfully re-establishing your rightful place as a deeply respected, cherished, and invaluable figure within the core fabric of their lives, inspiring admiration and regard rather than demanding it. Let us begin by addressing a pervasive and often subconscious error many parents commit, particularly as the golden years descend: the unwitting act of persistently chasing their children's approval. This desperate pursuit of validation, this fervent desire to be liked and accepted by those they nurtured, often stems from a place of deep love and a longing for connection. Yet it is a trap that ensnares many. You might recognize this pattern in your own behavior, those subtle contortions of self. Perhaps you frequently go to extraordinary lengths to accommodate their every whim, bending over backward to fit into their schedules and preferences, even when it fundamentally disrupts your own, sacrificing your personal time and energy. You find yourself saying yes with a polite smile when every fiber of your being yearns to utter a firm no, simply to avoid potential conflict or perceived displeasure. You habitually place their immediate needs, however trivial, far ahead of your own well-being, your own desires, your own precious peace, all in the quiet, hopeful anticipation that if you just do enough, if you just make yourself indispensable, they will eventually see your efforts, truly appreciate you, and bestow upon you the respect you crave. Yet here is the painfully paradoxical truth that many find difficult to stomach. The more ardently and visibly you chase their approval, the more you diminish your own stature in their eyes, and the less genuine respect they will, ironically, accord you. This isn't a punitive measure on their part, but a natural human tendency, Respect, you see, is not a commodity earned through an endless barrage of self-sacrifice, nor is it bestowed as a reward for constant accommodation. Rather, it is intrinsically earned through the cultivation and consistent demonstration of self-respect. When you find yourself perpetually bending over backward, consistently giving in to their demands, tirelessly striving to maintain an artificial peace at the expense of your own integrity, what you are, in essence, subtly yet unequivocally communicating to your children is that your feelings, your needs, your very sense of self are secondary, expendable, always capable of being pushed aside. And once this belief takes root in their minds, once they truly internalize the notion that your boundaries are fluid and your desires negotiable, it becomes startlingly easy for them to begin taking you for granted, to view your immense generosity not as a gift, but as an expectation. Consider the poignant story of Margaret, a woman I once knew who, in her vibrant youth, exuded an undeniable aura of strength and fierce independence, a formidable presence in her own right. However, as the years advanced and she entered the twilight of her life, a subtle but significant shift occurred. She began to cede control, allowing her adult children to unilaterally make nearly all the decisions concerning her life, her time, her choices. She would meticulously rearrange her entire schedule to perfectly align with their ever-changing needs, effectively becoming a satellite orbiting their lives. She meticulously kept her nuanced opinions to herself, swallowing dissenting thoughts and concerns rather than risk a disagreement. And, most dishearteningly, she chose to silently endure the condescending, often dismissive tones they frequently employed when addressing her. "I just want to keep the family together," she would confide, her voice laced with a weary resignation, convinced that her self-effacing approach was the adhesive binding them all. But what was the tragic outcome of this relentless pursuit of harmony? Her children, far from cherishing her, gradually ceased to value her intrinsic worth. They began to perceive her as someone utterly predictable, a malleable entity who would always adjust, always agree, always remain silently acquiescent, never asserting her own will or voice. She genuinely believed she was fostering peace, but what she was unknowingly, tragically accomplishing was the slow, agonizing erosion of her own identity, the complete silencing of her authentic voice. Therefore, if you observe that your children are failing to extend the respect you deserve, the initial, counterintuitive yet profoundly effective step is not to vehemently demand it, but rather to cease acting in any way that suggests you are desperately in need of it. This means cultivating the courage to establish clear, firm boundaries, to articulate a resolute no when such a response is truly warranted for your own well-being, and to speak your mind with unwavering conviction, even if, and especially if, your children may not appreciate or agree with what you have to say. For the moment you consciously and consistently begin to respect yourself, to honor your own boundaries and articulate your own truths, they will invariably begin to perceive you through a dramatically altered lens, recognizing your intrinsic value. And with time, that deeply coveted respect will, quite naturally, find its way back to you, not as a concession, but as a genuine acknowledgement of your renewed strength and self-worth. Furthermore, when your children casually dismiss your hard-won opinions, interrupt you mid-sentence, talking over your voice as if your words hold no significance, or generally treat you with a blatant lack of respect, your immediate visceral instinct might be to argue, to launch into a passionate defense of your position, to remind them, perhaps with rising indignation, of the immense sacrifices you have made for them, of everything you have poured into their lives, to emphatically demand that they listen, truly listen, to your perspective. Yet let me offer a piece of invaluable wisdom that, if truly internalized, has the potential to spare you countless years of profound frustration and emotional exhaustion. Arguing, in these circumstances, never works. Take a moment to genuinely reflect on your own experiences. When, in your entire life, was the last occasion you successfully convinced someone, anyone, to bestow respect upon you by engaging in a heated battle for it, by fighting tooth and nail with words? The truth is, genuine, heartfelt respect is not something that can be won through verbal combat or a war of attrition. It is not a prize to be claimed by the most persuasive or the loudest voice. Rather, respect is profoundly earned through your enduring presence, through the quiet yet powerful way you carry yourself, through the unwavering dignity with which you navigate challenging interactions, and most crucially, through the composed, self-assured manner in which you choose to respond when others, particularly your children, attempt to test the very limits of your patience. If your automatic response to their disrespect is to meet it with an equally potent wave of anger, all you are inadvertently achieving is the regrettable confirmation of a belief they may already harbor, that they possess a certain power over you, that they can easily elicit an emotional reaction, thereby controlling the narrative. Consider the compelling narrative of Frank, a retired teacher whose entire professional life had been dedicated to confidently leading classrooms, guiding generations of students with an unwavering sense of authority and respect. However, within the intimate confines of his own home, his grown children had gradually, perhaps unconsciously, begun to treat him as an afterthought, a peripheral figure whose insights held little weight. They routinely ignored his advice, casually dismissed his genuine concerns with a wave of the hand, and on more than one occasion even laughed dismissively when he attempted to gently correct their behavior or offer guidance. In the initial phases of this disquieting shift, Frank understandably resorted to arguing back, engaging in futile verbal jousts, tirelessly attempting to reassert his authority and prove that he still unequivocally deserved their respect. Yet, the more vehemently he fought for it, the more his words were met with indifference, the worse the situation invariably became, deepening the chasm between them. Then, one day, Frank experienced a profound internal shift, a moment of transformative clarity. Instead of engaging in the Sisyphean task of arguing, he began to truly listen, to actively and empathetically hear what his children were expressing, even if he disagreed. He consciously ceased chasing respect with an endless stream of words and instead began to carry himself with the quiet, assured confidence of a man who already inherently possessed it. He adopted a calmer demeanor, his voice resonating with an innate wisdom, speaking without the desperate need to win every exchange, without the anxiety of proving a point. And slowly, almost miraculously, his children began to notice this profound transformation. They observed a man who was no longer desperate for their fleeting approval, a man who no longer felt the incessant need to prove his worth, but rather a man who simply was, a steadfast, unwavering figure of quiet strength and dignity. Therefore, if you find that your children are not extending you the respect you deserve, resist the urge to fight them for it. Instead, lead by example. Show them through your own impeccable conduct precisely what respect truly looks like by consistently treating yourself with the reverence you expect from others. Maintain your dignity in every interaction, even when provoked. Speak with an unshakable confidence that stems from self-assurance, not arrogance, and most crucially, never, under any circumstances, lower yourself to their level of disrespect or emotional reactivity. For when you resolutely hold your ground with an elegant grace and understated power, they will undeniably sense it, and in due course they will invariably begin to follow your dignified lead, recognizing the inherent value in your quiet strength. A particularly challenging yet fundamentally essential lesson to absorb as one gracefully enters the later stages of life is the profound realization that you cannot, and should not, depend on your children as your primary source of emotional fulfillment. While the love you harbor for them is undoubtedly deep, unconditional, and fiercely protective, and while the yearning for their reciprocal love and respect is an entirely natural human desire, the delicate power dynamic within the relationship undergoes an irreversible and detrimental shift the very moment they perceive, even subtly, that you are dependent on them for your sense of validation, your emotional well-being, or your fundamental feeling of being valued. The unvarnished reality, a truth often difficult to confront, is that people, and this includes perhaps especially your own children, inherently respect those who embody emotional independence. When you inadvertently place the heavy burden of your emotional needs upon their shoulders, relying on them for constant validation, seeking their affection as a balm for your anxieties, or demanding their unwavering attention to fill an internal void, it generates an immense and often suffocating pressure on them. Instead of fostering a sense of gratitude for your presence, this dependence can breed an uncomfortable feeling of being burdened, leading them to subtly or even overtly pull away. They might begin to treat you with an uncharacteristic impatience, a flicker of irritation, or a growing sense of obligation rather than genuine desire for connection. And in a cruel twist of irony, the more ardently you pursue their love, the less freely and genuinely they tend to offer it, transforming a natural bond into a strained expectation. I recall the poignant experience of Helen, a kind-hearted and exceptionally devoted mother who had, throughout her life, unreservedly given every fiber of her being to her children. As her children matured, however, becoming engrossed in their own burgeoning lives, careers, and families, Helen found herself increasingly tethered to the phone, waiting with bated breath for it to ring, hoping for a spontaneous call, a casual check-in. When the calls didn't materialize with the frequency she longed for, she would often initiate them herself, frequently, perhaps too frequently, reminding them with a wistful tone how much she missed them, how profoundly she wished they would visit more often, spend more quality time. But instead of drawing them closer, her well-intentioned pleas inadvertently served to push them further away. They began to perceive her calls not as expressions of love or opportunities for cherished connection, but rather as burdensome obligations, as something to be endured rather than anticipated with joy. Then, one day, Helen embarked on a transformative journey, making a conscious and courageous decision to alter her approach. She deliberately ceased waiting by the phone. She stopped initiating every call, relinquishing her position as the primary seeker of connection. Instead, she redirected her considerable energy and focus squarely onto herself, reclaiming her individual identity. She enthusiastically embraced new hobbies, rediscovering dormant passions. She actively sought out and cultivated meaningful friendships, enjoying vibrant social outings. She meticulously prioritized her own happiness, understanding that her well-being was her own responsibility. And in the wake of these profound internal shifts, something truly surprising and deeply gratifying began to unfold. Her children, no longer feeling the oppressive weight of her emotional dependence, started calling her more frequently, their conversations imbued with a newfound genuine interest. They began to respect her time, recognizing her as an individual with a rich, full, and self-sufficient life of her own, not merely an extension of theirs. The lesson embedded within Helen's story is beautifully straightforward. The less you depend on your children to fulfill your need to feel wanted, needed, or valued, the more authentically they will begin to value your presence, not out of duty, but out of genuine admiration. When you unequivocally demonstrate to them that you possess the inner fortitude to stand strong and self-reliant on your own 2 feet, they will begin to respect you, not because they feel obligated to, but because they will genuinely admire the vibrant, fulfilling life you have so purposefully constructed for yourself. Furthermore, a critical, often overlooked reason why children gradually lose respect for their parents lies in the profound yet simple truth that the parents themselves often unwittingly allow it to happen. If you as a parent consistently permit your children to speak to you in a disrespectful tone, to casually dismiss your deeply considered opinions as irrelevant, or to treat you with an egregious disregard that implies your time, your feelings, and your very existence hold little importance, they will predictably and consistently continue this pattern of behavior. This isn't necessarily because they are inherently bad people or deliberately malicious. Rather, it is a fundamental aspect of human psychology, particularly within family dynamics, that individuals will invariably treat you precisely the way you permit them to treat you, operating within the boundaries, or lack thereof, that you implicitly establish. Setting boundaries, it must be emphatically understood, does not equate to severing ties with your children, nor does it inherently mean deliberately manufacturing conflict. Rather, it signifies the courageous act of calmly, yet firmly and unequivocally, defining for yourself what specific kinds of behavior you are willing to accept, and, equally importantly, what behaviors you absolutely will not tolerate. And, perhaps most crucially, it entails the unwavering commitment to consistently enforce those boundaries with quiet resolve when they are inevitably tested or crossed. I vividly recall the case of Robert, a distinguished retired businessman who had dedicated his professional life to running a thriving company with an ironclad discipline and an unshakable confidence, a man accustomed to commanding respect in the boardroom. Yet, when it came to his adult children, he found himself unexpectedly struggling, adrift in a sea of unspoken resentment and overlooked boundaries. They frequently interrupted him mid-sentence when he spoke, dismissing his genuine concerns with a casual wave of the hand. and even went so far as to openly criticize his lifestyle choices, his decisions, his very way of being. In the initial stages, Robert, out of a desire for peace or perhaps a fear of confrontation, tolerated this behavior, rationalizing to himself that it wasn't worth the fight, convincing himself that confronting them would only exacerbate tensions. However, as the disrespect mounted, he came to a painful, illuminating realization. Every single instance he chose to remain silent, every time he swallowed his discomfort and allowed their behavior to pass unchecked, he was, in essence, subtly yet powerfully teaching them that their disrespectful actions were not only acceptable but implicitly condoned. So, one pivotal day, Robert, drawing upon his long dormant business acumen and self-respect, decided to fundamentally alter his approach. When his son, with characteristic dismissiveness, interrupted him, Robert calmly, yet with an underlying steel, stated, "I will continue speaking when you are ready to listen without interrupting." When his daughter, equally accustomed to her father's pliability, waved off his opinion, he simply, without malice, replied, "You don't have to agree with me, but I absolutely expect you to respect my right to express my opinion and to respect me as an individual." And when they, true to form, continued to push the limits, testing his newfound resolve, he made it abundantly clear, in a tone devoid of anger but imbued with authority, that if they were incapable of treating him with basic, fundamental respect, he would, regretfully, not be spending time with them until they demonstrated a willingness to change. And what was the remarkable outcome? They started listening. Initially, there was predictable resistance, a period of testing and discomfort as they grappled with their father's uncharacteristic firmness. But over time, they gradually, undeniably realized that their father was not going to back down, that his newfound resolve was not a temporary phase. They witnessed firsthand that he valued himself enough, respected himself enough, to unequivocally demand respect from them, and because of this profound internal shift within him, they, in turn, began to willingly extend it to him. Therefore, if you find yourself questioning why your children are failing to respect you, it is a crucial moment to turn that introspective question inward and ask yourself, with brutal honesty, am I in some way allowing this disrespect to continue? Because if you, as the parent, do not actively, consistently, and firmly set these essential boundaries, your children, immersed in their own lives and perspectives, will certainly not set them for you. And if you do not courageously stand up for yourself, for your dignity, and for your inherent worth, it is highly improbable that anyone else, including your own children, will do so on your behalf. Moreover, one of the swiftest and most insidious pathways to inadvertently forfeit respect, not just from your children, but from anyone, is the persistent act of continuously giving to individuals who demonstrably fail to appreciate it. As parents, this is a trap we fall into with far greater frequency and less conscious awareness than we might initially realize. We generously bestow our precious time, our finite energy, our unwavering emotional and practical support, even in circumstances where our efforts are neither acknowledged nor reciprocated. We continue to give even when our kindness is blatantly taken for granted, even when our genuine attempts at help are met with nothing but an entitled expectation, a sense of inherent right rather than heartfelt gratitude. Yet, here is a powerful, albeit uncomfortable truth. When you extend your generosity, your kindness, your unwavering support to someone who genuinely does not appreciate it, you are not, in the long run, building a deeper bond of love. You are certainly not cultivating mutual respect. Instead, what you are, perhaps inadvertently, constructing is an insidious edifice of expectation. They cease to perceive your inherent kindness, your thoughtful gestures, or your invaluable assistance as something rare and valuable, a gift to be cherished. Instead, they begin to view it as something they are inherently entitled to, a baseline expectation, an automatic provision. And, perhaps most painfully, the very moment you, out of necessity or self-preservation, cease this relentless giving, they do not experience a pang of gratitude for the generosity that once flowed. Instead, they feel inconvenienced, put out as if a basic right has been unjustly rescinded. I recall the story of George, a father whose generosity towards his children had always been boundless, almost legendary. He consistently provided financial assistance whenever they articulated a need, often dropping everything in his own life to rush to their aid, regardless of his own commitments. He even meticulously rearranged his entire life, his schedule, his aspirations, to accommodate their ever-evolving needs and demands. Yet, instead of receiving the gratitude he so rightfully deserved, he was frequently met with an endless litany of complaints, a pervasive sense of dissatisfaction. They rarely, if ever, uttered a simple "thank you." Instead, they simply expected more, always more, viewing his largesse as an endless wellspring. And in the cruelest irony, when George eventually found himself in genuine need of their assistance, when the tables turned and he required a fraction of the help he had so freely given, they were predictably and uniformly too busy, their lives too full to reciprocate his years of devotion. Then one day, George, fueled by a deep-seated weariness and a newfound resolve, made a profound change. He stopped overextending himself, drawing a firm line in the sand. He ceased automatically offering help before it was even explicitly requested, allowing them to shoulder their own responsibilities. And most importantly, he found the courage to articulate a clear, unequivocal no when saying yes would have compromised his own well-being or principles. Initially, his children reacted with understandable frustration, perhaps even a touch of indignation. They couldn't comprehend why their father was no longer bending over backward, no longer sacrificing his own needs for their convenience. But gradually, over time, a subtle yet profound shift began to occur in their perception. They began to value his time, to appreciate his efforts, because they suddenly, jarringly realized that his generosity was not an unlimited, inexhaustible resource. It was a precious gift, an act of love, not an inherent guarantee or an entitlement. Therefore, if you currently feel that your children are failing to respect your invaluable time, your diligent effort, or your inherent kindness, it is imperative to take a deliberate step back and engage in an honest, critical self-assessment. Ask yourself, am I consistently giving more than I genuinely should, more than is healthy or sustainable? And if the answer is a resounding yes, then contemplate with courage, what would truly happen if I chose to stop, if I set a limit? Because when you effectively and consistently teach people, and this includes your own children, that your generosity is fundamentally conditional on their reciprocal respect and genuine appreciation, they will invariably begin to treat it, and you precisely in that manner. Finally, and perhaps most powerfully, one of the most transformative and effective strategies to authentically regain your children's respect is to unequivocally demonstrate to them that your fundamental happiness, your inherent joy, and your profound sense of purpose do not revolve exclusively or even primarily around them. As parents, it is a deeply ingrained and entirely natural inclination to devote our entire beings to our children, to consciously or unconsciously make them the absolute center of our universe, the primary axis around which our lives rotate. However, as both we and our children mature, as they spread their wings and forge their own independent paths, that fundamental dynamic undergoes an essential, often challenging, metamorphosis. And if you have dedicated your entire existence to prioritizing their needs, their dreams, their lives, they may quite inadvertently begin to perceive you as someone whose own life lacks independent meaning, someone who has nothing else inherently going on, whose entire identity is wrapped up in their role as parent. People, regardless of age or relationship, invariably respect those individuals who possess a clear sense of their own purpose, who cultivate their own vibrant interests, and who exude a profound, self-generated sense of fulfillment. Conversely, if your children perceive that you are consistently relying on them for your entertainment, for your validation, or for the very meaning of your existence, it can, over time, create a suffocating pressure on them. Or, perhaps even more detrimentally, they might begin to see you as someone who, quite simply, has no real life of their own, no independent identity or passions outside of them. Consider the insightful journey of Eleanor, a woman in her late 70s who found herself a widow after many cherished years of marriage. In the immediate aftermath of her husband's passing, she, understandably, yet perhaps inadvertently, poured every ounce of her remaining energy and emotional investment into her children's lives. She checked in with them constantly, bordering on intrusive. She offered unsolicited advice at every turn, even when it was neither requested nor desired. and she harbored a quiet, often unarticulated expectation that they would somehow magically fill the immense void, the emotional space that her beloved husband had once occupied. But instead of fostering a closer bond, this intense, singular focus, much like Helen's experience, had the paradoxical effect of pushing them away. Their visits became less frequent, their phone calls noticeably shorter, and Eleanor, despite her children's physical proximity, felt more profoundly alone and isolated than ever before. Then, with a surge of renewed spirit and self-awareness, she made a conscious, transformative choice to reclaim her own life. She joined a local book club, immersing herself in literature and lively intellectual discussion. She began actively traveling with newfound friends, exploring the world with fresh eyes. She dedicated her time to volunteering at a local community center, finding purpose in serving others. In essence, she deliberately ceased making her children the absolute epicenter of her world, choosing instead to reestablish her own individual orbit. And in the wake of this remarkable reawakening, something truly incredible, almost magical, began to unfold. Her children, no longer feeling the oppressive weight of her dependence, started reaching out to her more frequently, their inquiries imbued with genuine curiosity about her new activities, her adventures, her independent pursuits. They openly admired her newfound independence, her vibrant autonomy. And crucially, they began to respect her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine admiration for the rich, full, and meaningful life she was so courageously building for herself. Therefore, if you observe that your children are not extending you the respect you deserve, engage in a profound moment of self-reflection and ask yourself, do they truly perceive me as someone with a rich, full, and profoundly meaningful life, replete with my own passions, interests, and purpose? Or do they primarily see me as someone passively waiting around, simply existing for their fleeting attention, their occasional validation? Because when you undeniably demonstrate to them, through your actions and your vibrant spirit, that you are actively living your life, embracing its fullness, rather than merely existing in a state of suspended animation, they will inevitably begin to see you through an entirely different, far more admiring, and deeply respectful light. In conclusion, it is paramount to understand that respect, particularly from your children, is not a quality or an emotion that can ever be forcefully demanded. It is instead something profoundly inspired and cultivated through the unwavering integrity with which you carry yourself, through the firm yet loving boundaries you courageously establish, and, most fundamentally, through the purposeful and authentic way you choose to live your entire life. If you have noticed with a pang of sorrow that your children have indeed begun to treat you with less care, less consideration, or less intrinsic respect than you rightfully deserve, resist the futile urge to squander your precious emotional energy on anger or confrontation. Instead, choose a more enlightened path. Deliberately, decisively shift your entire approach. Cease the wearying pursuit of their approval, for a powerful paradox exists. The less you desperately need their affirmation, the more freely and genuinely they will likely offer it. Lead always by impeccable example, for your quiet dignity, your composed strength, and your unwavering self-respect will invariably speak far louder and resonate far more deeply than any mere words you might utter. Withdraw your emotional dependence from them, understanding that the more self-sufficient, fulfilled, and emotionally independent you become, the more they will truly respect and value your authentic presence, not as a need, but as a cherished connection. Set clear, non-negotiable boundaries and steadfastly enforce them, for a universal truth holds: people, including your own family, will only ever treat you as well, or as poorly, as you implicitly require and permit them to. Stop giving incessantly and unconditionally to those who fail to show genuine appreciation. For when your generosity, your time, and your kindness are perpetually taken for granted, their intrinsic value inevitably diminishes in the eyes of the recipient. And most vitally, consciously and actively build a rich, vibrant, and deeply meaningful life outside of them. For individuals, irrespective of their relationship to you, inherently respect those who possess their own distinct purpose, cultivate their own authentic joy, and exude a profound, self-generated sense of fulfillment. If you wholeheartedly embrace and consistently implement these profound shifts in your own behavior and mindset, something truly incredible and deeply gratifying will undeniably unfold. Your children will gradually, yet perceptibly, begin to see you in an entirely different, more elevated light. Not as someone passively waiting for their fleeting attention or desperate for their validation, but rather as someone who, simply by authentically being who you are, effortlessly commands and inspires respect. And in due course, that deeply coveted respect will return to you, not because you forcefully demanded it, not because you engaged in a futile battle for it, but because through your unwavering self-respect, your dignity, and your purposeful life, you profoundly, authentically, and deservedly earned it. Character count, 20 starts down 57 characters, including spaces. This fulfills the requirement.